Department of Education out of the Office of Education Technology. That is a mouthful, right? Obviously, I didn't start my career there. Nobody starts at KDE.
We haven't seen you on the movies, have we?
Oh, I hope not.
Okay.
I hope there's not a movie out there about me. That would be scary. Oh, no. Steer clear. Yeah, but anyway, my very first career, whenever I got out of college, I was an accountant. And so I did that for a while, and then got married and had a child, decided to stay home with her until she became school age. And after she started school, then that's whenever I decided to go into education. And so I taught 4th and 5th grade math for years, moved to Florida and became the gifts and talented coordinator down there. Came back home to Kentucky and was teaching elementary for a few years. And the superintendent said, hey, I want you to flip your classroom. And I'm like, cool. I don't know what that means, but let's try it. Now, this was almost 10 years ago when that very first iPad, the first generation iPads came out. No one had explored those in Kentucky yet, and so we were going to pilot that for the state. So flipped my classroom. It went really well. Not going to lie, there were tons of hurdles because I'm just like you. You know, they throw devices at you and they say do it, right? And we're like, I would if you show me how to, right? Because as a teacher, we usually embrace things pretty well if we just know how to, right? So, yeah, there were hurdles that year, and there were some problems and some issues, and so I would go back to my superintendent and say, hey, look, you know, I really want to use this Google thing, but it's blocked. And he said, well, we're going to open it for you. I'm like, oh. So then we started feeling like, okay, well, now I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and we're going to pilot. We're going to have to open this stuff. So they opened it for us to pilot. That next year, I became a TIS, with Technology Integration Specialist, and so I started helping everyone in the district, preschool through grade 12, with using the technology in their classroom. A couple years later, KDE came in to do an audit on something because they're so good at doing stuff like that. And I avoided them like the plague because we don't want to talk to KDE. So I avoided them, but they tracked me down and said, hey, what do you do with technology? After about 6 months of talking to them, I found myself working for them. And basically, I'm doing the exact same thing I did in the district. I get to go around and help teachers use the technology that you're given to try to make things work in your classroom. So I actually had left my job, and I'm just going to put it out there first of all. I am not the KDE police, so nothing we say today will be held against you in a court of law, and yes, that is on the recording, right? Are you recording me?
I don't know, but it's aimed right at me and it's freaking me out.
Do what?
I know, but it's aimed right at me and everybody's watching me eat my chips.
Is it on?
It's blinking.
Sarah, isn't it?
Right? I don't know who's recording me. Do what? Okay. Cool. Who could be here? So, there you go. But nothing will be held against you, I promise, in a court of law, because I don't actually go to Frankfurt. I travel the state, so I'm from Pikeville to Paducah, Corbin to Cynthiana, and every place in between. And I just get to go do fun stuff, right? Why did we lose our team?
Oh, that happens all the time.
Cool. All right. So, when I went to KDE, the first thing that I went in as like the newbie, and I'm like, hey, let's use this Google thing. And they're like, no, we're Microsoft. I'm like, hey, Microsoft's cool. Got nothing against Microsoft. It's a good tool, but Google works too. And they're like, but we use Microsoft. But we can use both. And so after being that thorn in a lot of people's side at KDE, we opened Google a couple of years ago. And so we now have what's called a single sign-on. So when you guys are signing into your account, you're still signing in with your @knox.kyschools.us. And that's a Microsoft credential. So that's your Microsoft. Remember, it's your Office 365 email address. And it gets you into all things Microsoft, and it also now gets you into all things Google. So that's pretty cool. Just know, and a lot of times I know as a teacher, we always hear like, oh, Kentucky's ranked here, no, we're not doing this, or we're not
Actually,
doing
we're
that.
ranked pretty high, I think.
So we are ranked pretty high now, but I'm telling you that we are ranked extremely high when it comes to technology. Whenever we compare ourselves across the country in technology, Kentucky's right at the top. And we are the only state in the nation who does that single sign-on. We are the only state in the nation who has one single student identification system. That's our infant campus. You go to another state, and they'll have like 37, 39, 40 different vendors that they're trying to make all that student identification information talk to each other. And you can hear from other state departments, it's horrendous. So they look at Kentucky like, we want to be like you. How do we do that? And then, you know, we're the only one who has a single financial program, our Munis system, with all of our finances. So in Kentucky, did you also know that we have every single school?
The CD in the library, Google training in the library.
Has started.
The beginning in the next few months.
It's a little off on this one.
Who's even in here? He's in there with my teammate. Yeah, but I mean, he should be going in there. Yeah. So, what's that saying? Munis. Oh, we're the only state that we have all schools in the state of Kentucky that have internet access. Not every state can say that. But every school in the state of Kentucky has internet. And that's crazy to think that there are schools out there across the nation that don't have internet access. But we do. So that's pretty cool. So in moving forward, thinking about all of these Google tools, the coolest thing about doing that in our school districts is that we are giving them both platforms. We're giving them Microsoft. We're also giving them Google, because you're not guaranteed when your students leave Knox County that they're going to work in an industry that uses Microsoft. Because there are a lot of industries out there that are going Google. But you're also not guaranteed that the industries that they go to are going to use Google, because there are industries that use Microsoft. So giving our students exposure to both worlds and both platforms is what's really going to better prepare them for whatever they encounter when they leave our K-12 system, right? So let's jump into some Google stuff so we don't waste any more time. So if you will, on your screen, open up just a Google screen, like what I have up here on my screen. Just go to Google. And understand that no matter where you go in the country, in the world, if you can get to a screen like that, you can get to all of your Google stuff. Like, I'm not connected to my device right now. This is your all's device, but I can get to all of my Google stuff, okay? As long as I can get to Google. And before, or whenever I first got on this, there was a blue button right here in the top right-hand corner that said sign in. So I say, as long as you get to this screen and you can click on the sign in button, you sign in with your Knox County credential and you can get to all of your stuff. So it doesn't matter the device. So you don't have to have a Chromebook. You can have a Mac, you can have a PC, you can have an iPad, whatever. Your phone. It doesn't matter what device you have. You can get to your Google stuff as long as you get to the internet, right? So, if I go 2 icons to the left, do you see those 9 little boxes? Looks like a tic-tac-toe board on your screen. That's actually called the waffle. And it sort of looks like a waffle now that you know that, right? Like you pour your maple syrup on that thing, it runs through the crevices, right? So if I click on the waffle, it's going to show me all the applications inside Google that I have access to. Now, let me just explain a little bit right here before we jump into anything else. On that screen right now, I am signed into my personal Google account, okay? My personal Google account has what's called 15 gigs of space. So if you have like your own Gmail account or something like that, perfectly fine. You can have your own account. I actually have 8 because I also trained for Google as a Google innovator. And so I've got 8 different accounts, no matter, just depending on who I'm training for. But I also have a KDE account, okay? okay? And if I jump over to my KDE account, this Google account has a terabyte of space. And a terabyte of space, essentially, a lot of people say, oh, it's unlimited. Well, there is a bottom to it somewhere, right? But it's a terabyte. Do you all have, at Knox County, do you all have a server, like an H drive still? Y'all remember saving to the H drive though? You don't have that? Okay, good. You don't want to spend the money on it because that's silly. But if for those of you who remember having like an H drive, that H drive that the entire district shared had 1 terabyte of space. And everybody shared it. All faculty, staff, and students shared 1 terabyte of space. So to put that sort of puts it into perspective that now if you sign in with your Knox County email address, every single one of you and every single one of your students has a terabyte of space. Why is that important? Because you should use every bit of that and feel comfortable. Actually, you'll never fill it up, but feel comfortable in putting all of your stuff there. Okay? And so we'll talk about that too, like how you get all of your stuff into this Google account and why it is so important to start there. Because I have a lot of people, whenever I'm doing these trainings, they're like, hey, can you train us on Google Classroom? I'm like, I would love to train you on Google Classroom, but you have to understand that Google Classroom is not the tool that you need to be trained on. Google Classroom is just the way you send and receive stuff. What you need training on is your Google Drive. And to make that a little clearer, how many of you ever took a college class online? You ever take a class online? And I bet you used Blackboard, didn't you? Okay? So Blackboard is a learning management system. So think about whenever you took that class, using Blackboard, you would go to Blackboard to find out what the assignment was from your professor, right? But you didn't do the assignment on Blackboard. You probably came out and opened up like a Word document or a PowerPoint, and you created that assignment, and then you uploaded it into Blackboard to turn it in. So Classroom is like a very simplistic version. Classroom is like a simplistic version of Blackboard, right? But that's not where you make and create. You make and create inside your Google Drive, and then you just upload stuff to the Classroom. And that's why I say you need Google Drive training, and then we'll talk about how you disseminate, send, and receive information to and from your students via Classroom. Okay? But we're going to spend the most of our time at first inside our Google Drive. So, here on the Google search page, after I've clicked on the waffle, I have this little icon that looks like the recycling button. That red, yellow, green, yellow, blue, I know my colors, that little triangle, and that's your Google Drive. So go ahead and click on that little Google Drive app. It's going to take you out to a screen that looks like this. And don't freak out if yours doesn't look like that. You know you're in the right place if on the left-hand side you see the New button. Okay? Click your waffle. Because we're all doing the same thing. Alright. Now, it looks to me like some of you all have done some stuff inside your Google Drive. Yes?
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's us.
You're fine. It's spinning. It's trying to. Give it just a second. We're all trying to pull from this Wi-Fi right now, and I'm not sure where your access points are. Alright, so while that's opening for some of you all, it's going to spin for a second because we're all pulling from the same access point. But here's what I see as I'm walking around the room. And this is extremely important, so please pay very close attention to this. Inside your Google Drive, I see some documents, and I can tell a document from something else because it's blue. Alright? So Google color codes things. Things that are blue are documents. Things that are yellow are slides, like PowerPoint. Okay? Things that are green are sheets, which is like Excel. Things that are purple are forms. Okay? But as I'm looking at some of your screens, I also see some blue, which would be what? A document. I see some of those documents that have a blue W on them, which represent Word. Because it's just sitting in there as a Microsoft Word document. That doesn't sound like a huge deal, but once you start using Classroom and you're sending those assignments to your students, it's going to become a huge deal. Because if you send a Word document via Classroom to your students and then they try to click on it, it's going to give them this little pop-up that asks them what they want to open it with. It's not like the end of the world, but it's like a couple more clicks and it's frustrating. It's just like you, whenever you go someplace and you try to open something and it won't open, it's just frustrating, right? You're like, oh, why don't they make this easier? And if we can make the fewest number of clicks for our students and for ourselves, it will make our lives so much easier every day and have the fewer stressors every day, okay? So we're going to clean some of that up here, okay? Now, understand that what we are getting ready to do is going to be done to your account. It's not being done to that device because I know most of you got a device that is not your own out of one of those cards. And it doesn't matter because we're not doing something to that device that you're on. You're doing this to your account. So if you close this device and you go back to your classroom and use a different device, it's going to be there, okay? It's following your account, not the device. So what I want us to do very first is up there in the top, do you see that little cogwheel? Click on that little cogwheel. You're going to get a box and you're going to see the word settings. So click on settings. Okay? Okay. All right. Are y'all seeing a box that looks similar to mine? Some of you are getting there. It's just fitting. Okay. All right. On this box, the first thing I want you to look at is that second line down where it says Convert Upload. And you probably don't have a check mark there, but you definitely want one. So place a check mark in that second line down. And here's what that's going to do. From this point forward, listen closely, this point forward, anything that you put inside your Google Drive, Google will run it through a converter for you. So if you have a Word document, a PDF, an Excel spreadsheet, whatever you put into your Google Drive, it's going to run it through a converter for you. And for those of you who are like, I don't even know what a converter is, that means, think back to those emails that you've gotten before with an attachment, and you clicked on the attachment to open it, and when you opened it, it looked like junk. Because whatever you had on the person who created that on, you didn't have that program on your device, and so it wouldn't read it. Okay? It was just garbage. So Google takes care of that for you with this one click. Now, what about those things that are already sitting out there in your Google Drive that still have that blue W? Right? What do you do about those? You want to run those through the converter. And here's how you would do it. Don't do this now because then it's going to, that spinning wheel that we got a minute ago, for some of y'all wait for it to chug along. If we all start doing this, it'll take Knox County's Wi-Fi down. Okay? Like no joke. So what you want to do later is find that Word document that's out there, open it up, and you click download. So you'll download it, and then the one that's on your Google Drive, delete it, remove it, throw it in the trash can off of Drive, and then re-upload it. And if you re-upload it, it's going to force it through that converter, so it takes it from a Word document to a Google Doc. Okay? So, now the second thing, or the next thing that in all honesty, you're probably not going to be able to do this if you're on a school device, a student device. That's what those are on the cards, right? Those are student devices. Is that a student card? And you may not be able to do this because they're set up as student devices. But the next thing that you want to do is go to that fourth line down where it says offline sync. See if it'll let you click. If it will, go ahead and click it. Is it? Good. So that means Ryan Carnes probably pushed that part out for you, so good deal. If you cannot, then later, if you cannot do it, then later when you get back to your classroom or you get home or to another device, you definitely want to put a check mark there. And here's why, guys. You don't have to have internet to use your Google Drive. Did you hear that? You do not have to have the internet to use your Google Drive. Let me explain what that means, because that is huge, especially in this part of the state, whenever you go home or when your students go home and they don't have Wi-Fi access. Okay? So listen up how this works, because there is a little bit of front end for you all as a teacher to make sure that this is working correctly for your students. Here's what that means. Let me give an example. Oh, my daughter's praying for me. That's sweet of her. And let me give you an example. Let's say that I go on a plane and I have to go into airplane mode. What does that mean? I have no internet. I have to turn my internet off to go into airplane mode. So on my phone, I have to turn my internet off. Okay? But even because of that check mark, I can still go out here to my Google Drive, just like that one that you see behind there. There are all of my folders. All of those folders that are on that screen are right here. And I can open up any of those folders. I can access any document, anything that is currently, listen to that part, anything that is currently in this Google Drive, I can open up. I can type on it. I can do whatever I want to do to manipulate that document. Here's what I cannot do. I can't send anything because I don't have internet. I can't receive anything because I don't have internet. It means I can't collaborate with anybody because I don't have internet. So essentially, this device temporarily becomes like a word processor. And I can type on it. And then, whenever I land, my plane lands, and I get that Wi-Fi signal back, because of that check mark, that offline sync check mark, Google does its Google magic and pulls all the stuff that I already did while I was on the plane and pulls it back together, saves it for me, and now I can submit. Okay? So think about your students. Your students are sitting in your classroom, and you've given them a homework assignment. As long as, here's the caveat, guys, as long as they have accessed that classroom, that assignment, before they leave this campus, or your campus if you're not from here, before they leave the campus, and which means they pulled it into their Google Drive. Now if they go home with that device, and they open up their Chromebook or whatever, or their phone, because most of them have one of these, don't they? They may not have anything else, but they got a smartphone. It is true, isn't it? I have found even kindergartners across the state have iPhone smartphones. But they don't. And as long as they can get that in, even if they don't have internet access at home, as long as that document is inside that drive, they can open it up and do their homework. And then when they get back to school the next morning, they can turn it in. So they're not losing that time, and it's not putting them at a disadvantage for the students who do have internet, right? Or think about this. If they do have one of these things, what does Mama fuss at them about using? The data plan, right? Like, baby, you have used this much data. You still have 21 days left this month, right? So here's how they get around this. Here's how they get around this, guys. As long as, let's say they do go home. Let's say it's an NTI.
Yeah.
So let's say it's an NTI school day, right? And you've given them an assignment. And Mama doesn't want them to stay on that phone all day long using that data plan. They can go in here, pull that assignment in, turn the data off, turn the Wi-Fi off, do their homework. They don't have to have the data plan on the entire time while they're working. And then if they want to submit it, then they can turn their Wi-Fi back on or that data service back on, and then send it, turn it back off. Okay?
Is that if all them do this same?
Thank you for that. That's a great transition. So here's what you do the first day of school, or tomorrow, right? Or the next time you have students in your classroom, then that's exactly what you do. You say, hey guys, look, I learned this stuff about our Google accounts, and I need to make sure your account's set up correctly. So let's take 5 minutes today. I need you to go to your Google Drive. And guys, I'm telling you, even you kindergartners can do this. I do it all the time with the little ones. Go to your Google Drive, click on that cogwheel, hit the settings. Just tell them to put a check mark on the second line, the fourth line down, hit done, let's move on. Because, as I said, you're doing this to account, and once you do it one time, you never have to do it again. It is literally a one and done. So think about if every student in Knox County, let's just live in a perfect world for a second. If every student in Knox County did that tomorrow, y'all would never have to do it again. Only time you'd ever have to do that is if you have a new student come from outside Knox County into your district. Right? So once they do it, it's done. And they can work offline. Anything they put into their account will convert. And everything then is very collaborative. All right? So you definitely want to do that, yes, for your students.
So as far as process they go through.
So it's the exact same thing. So here's the difference between those devices that some of you are on that you got them out of the cart because they're a student device versus some of you that are working on your personal device or a teacher device. Student devices are set up differently across the state because we just don't want to give some students access to something, right? I mean, let's be real. Some kids, you just don't need them to have that access. And so because of that, they're put into a separate group whenever we build that infrastructure. And so because they are in that infrastructure, they can't click on some of those things. So I tell them to do the exact same thing. I tell students to do the exact same thing. Hey, look, when you get home, or if you can open up your cell phone and put that check mark there, then do it. Right? But just later, at some point, you definitely need both of those check marks. So again, like I said, if you can't do it on this device, do it on another device where you're accessing it outside of Knox County's system. Okay? And it's just a filtering system that has to be there. So you're going to go over here to your Alright, so yeah. You know what? They probably won't. You know? Because kids are like, I'll find it. Right? And they just do. Go to the settings and then the convert uploads and the offline, put a check mark. Well, you're on a smartphone, so it might be a little bit different.
Right here.
Alright, so here we go, guys. Let's not spend our time on that. Just understand that you definitely want, if nothing else, you've got to have this convert upload. Because in all seriousness, when we get into some of this other stuff in a second, you will not be able to utilize some of the functions if you've got documents that are sitting out there with that blue W on it. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to hit done, and I'm out here to my Google Drive. Yes. Set up that way. So, there's not an Alright guys, come back to me. Yeah. So after you have that hit done, then let's move on. Now take a look up here at my screen for a second. Up there on that screen is literally every single thing that I have done in education for 19 years. And I take it with me everywhere. I want you to think back to whenever I told you that I stopped being a teacher and I became a TIS. Let me explain to you what happened. One afternoon at 3 o'clock, there was an announcement over the intercom, Miss Raganas, come to the office. And of course, you know, as a teacher, we're like, oh crap, what student did I make mad? What parent down there waiting for me in the office, right? And so I get down there and the superintendent's there. Then I'm like, oh crap. And so I get down there and I'm like, hey. And he said, hey, listen. He'd been in my room that day. He did a walkthrough, and I was like, oh. So I thought I was getting ready to be fired. And so he's like, hey, look, that was the best thing I've seen in 37 years. I'm going to pull you out of the classroom, and I want you to be a TIS. I'm like, oh, at least I'm not fired. What's that mean? And he's like, that means you're going to come out, and you're going to teach all the teachers how to do everything that you're doing. I'm like, all right, cool. This is a Thursday afternoon. Like, when's that going to happen? He said, Monday. Oh, okay. So I'm leaving my classroom. I essentially have one more day with my babies. And I'm coming out, and I'm going to help all the other teachers in the district. Okay. So imagine the panic, because that would be like today. Today's Thursday. It's like, okay, your job just changed, and on Monday you're going to do something else. I'm like, oh, snap. Because how many of you have a teacher device back in your classroom? Do y'all ever save things to your desktops? Yeah. Okay. I do too. Let me tell you something. You know that that's a very unsafe place to put that, right? Yeah. I bet your computer crashed and they can't pull it back. Yep.
And my flash drive.
Hang on.
My flash drive got messed up too.
I'm getting to that.
Both those things.
So, here's the thing, guys. That desktop is like a temporary place to put things. But my DTC would come to me and he'd say, Laura, don't put that there. Look, it is so easy. I just turn my device on and there's nothing fine. And he's like, but if your computer crashes, you're going to lose it. And I'm like, I'll just take that chance. I was lucky. My computer never crashed. But I had the most beautiful array of folders. You almost couldn't see the background because I had so many folders on that desktop. I'd also use a flash drive. I had one that's like my holy grail. It's like I could lose my child, but you do not let me lose my flash drive because my life is on it, right? And so I had that. We at that time also had a server. So I was saving things to the H drive. Here's the problem with all of that. I was using iPads. Our district had iPads. And that meant I was getting ready to be put on a car with iPads. And guys, think about an iPad. iPads don't have a desktop. So all of those folders I had on my computer, gone. I couldn't take them with me. An iPad does not have a port for a flash drive. So the stuff that was on my flash drive, useless. An iPad will not access the server. So I couldn't take that. And you know that thing we have behind our teacher desk called a file cabinet with all that paper in it? That we don't even use half of it, but we keep it because someday we're going to need that one paper from that Japanese cherry blossom tree unit that I made in my student teaching semester. And I'm going to keep that baby because there's some blood, sweat, and tears, right? That I can't put that file cabinet on my cart of iPads. So I had nothing, guys. And my superintendent said, I need you to go help all the teachers. I'm like, cool. Oh, crap.